let me introduce myself. My name is Angela Johnson and I've worked for Abstract for over 25 years. For the past 15 years, I've been living with today's special guest. So I think I do know a thing or two about the mind of the man that has driven Abstract for over the past 3 decades. So then let's start with the first question. What was the first minute of the first hour you entered the disco industry?
Well, Ange, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? I remember the 2001 Space Odyssey Disco Roadshow. That was the first moment. Myself and Neil Mason, a good friend of mine, started the mobile disco. Borrowed all the money from my mum to start it off. She purchased everything from the K's catalogue. We had a Citronic Iowa, I think it was, or I don't know, something like that. It wasn't a state line. We couldn't afford that. It had these beautiful little dials on it, yellow top dials for your tone controls. And brilliant. And embedded into it, I think we had a Pulsar 03000. I mean, that was a big thing. Thank you, Paul Marden, for that. Brilliant bit of kit that was. I believe he even went on to make the modulator, which was even bigger and better. But our Pulsar 03000 at the time, we used to do everything sounds like. We had a pair of FAL light boxes, double story FAL light boxes with chromium grills on the front, and bass bins, huge, fantastic FAL bass bins. They were mega, hard to carry and lift, but I tell you what, the sound of those things was just out of this world.
Now then, you mentioned before we got together that you was an international DJ. So how did all that come about?
International DJ, chasing the dream. That's how I remember, chasing the dream. I was working in the co-op, selling hi-fis, and I'd made a tape where I'd sort of DJ'd between the songs, sort of with all the features of the stereo that I was trying to sell. This man, Paul Stewart, his name, God rest his soul. He was an international disc jockey and an agent, and he was looking for new talent, I guess. And he said to me, while purchasing a stereo, "Is that you on the tape?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, you're a good DJ, you know. Have you ever fancied working abroad, like in Denmark, maybe as an international disc jockey?" I said, "Well, what's that entail?" He said, "Well, you just get on a boat and go to Denmark. I'll get you a job and away you go." And the first job he got me was in Copenhagen at a place called Daddy's Dance Hall. And as I drove there, I borrowed a car, a little Mini Cooper, from my brother Dave Watts, who works at Abstract to this current day. And he says, "Steve, you know, you borrow this car," he says, "but you've got to put, oil in every 50 miles. He says, "because Mini Coopers are renowned for eating oil." So I loaded it up with 1,500 records, mobile disco records, as you can well imagine. Drove to Harwich, got on the Dana Anglia and went to Esbjerg, drove right across Jylland and ended up in Zealand, Copenhagen. Got to the hotel, says, "Hello there, my name's Steve Watts." "Who?" "Steve Watts, I'm the DJ, Daddy's Dance Hall." "Don't know about that, mate." This was like 11 o'clock at night. I had to sleep in my car until about 6:30 the next morning, when the next person came on shift. I walked back in the morning about 11. "Oh yeah, we know, your room's ready, mate. It's been ready since yesterday." That sort of thing. Anyway, I worked around Denmark, all over Denmark, all over Zealand, all over Jutland, and that's how I first came across Peter Johansson. This is before Peter Johansson owned Martin. Martin was just a twinkle in his eye at that point. He owned a company called DP Electronics in Aarhus, and he sold Tivoli light, these tiny little white Tivoli lights that were all impregnated into like a tube. I suppose it's the closest thing you probably get to LED tape these days. This is way before then. And you'd put this around the stair nosing of your discotheques and hang them in the roof and run them off a pulsar modulator or whatever you'd got. And that's how it all began. And I started buying this Tivoli light off him and selling it to clubs in Denmark. That's how it all began at the very beginning. Even probably even Peter Johansson. I remember him ringing me at my little apartment. "Hey, Steve, can you settle your bill? Fabulous, fabulous.
Okay, so how did you move on from there? Where did you go next?
A twist of fate. That's where it went from there. I moved from Denmark, went to Germany. I got offered a job in a nightclub called Micmac in Kaltenkirchen, which was a suburb of Hamburg. And when I was working, I'd been there probably 2 or 3 years. It was a 5,000 capacity venue. And we used to do crazy things on the stage because it was so big. We would entertain so many people. And we had an experimental aircraft on the stage. And Ingo, the lighting jockey at the time, one of the first LDs, a proper LD back in the day, he decided that we would pretend to start the engine on this experimental aircraft. And then on the third attempt, he'd blow it up with pyrotechnics. Really exciting, So it was 1, 2, 3, go! And everybody would be, yeah, crazy, And on the third attempt, bang, up it went, pyros everywhere. And then as the pyros finished, they kind of melted through Ingo's fire defense mechanism, which was a bit of tinfoil that wrapped around the wings, and it went straight through and set fire to this aircraft. So it's blazing on the stage. I'm Ingo, problem. He goes, what? No problem. I says, fire, Ingo. So he comes running out with his German fire extinguisher, which was massive on a wheel on like a sort of wheelbarrow thing, and he puts it out. But of course, the first 2 or 3 rows of people in front of the stage couldn't breathe because it was that power and stuff, So we had to stop the music. A few ambulances came and took away a few people, and they just swept up the mess and lights off. Let's go again. The disco music starts and off we went. Now, you'd never get away with that back, now, would you? But back in the day, that was fine. Anyway, 20, 30 minutes later, this German guy or German-speaking guy turns up at the disco booth, and here's a twist of fate like no other. And his name was Pepe, Spanish guy. And he says, "Hi, Steve. That was close, yeah?" I said, "Yeah, very close." But he spoke only German, no English. And I could speak German at the time a little bit, not brilliant, but I could certainly get by. And he said, "Are you happy in your job?" I said, "Yeah, it's good. I've been here 3 years. Why don't you have a change in life?" "Right, okay. I need a translator. My translator is pregnant. She's leaving in 1 week, and you could be my new translator." Simple as that. Pepe, God love you. God love you, Pepe. And 2 weeks later, I left Micmac, the disco dreams, to go to Madrid. Drove from Hamburg to Madrid in my car, and became one of Copperluth. And Copperluth means cooperative light. There were 7 brothers or family members that owned Copperluth, and they were a massive sort of spin-off of Sattel, who made all the helicopters and the 90-degree scanners, 360-degree scanners. And Pepe specialized in mirror balls, multi millions a year in mirror balls, masses of them. You've never seen anything like it. And so I'd be working with people like Dave from Jive Light, which of course Mike Hendon, Leisure Tech, will remember Dave very, very well from Jive Light. And he would be one of my customers. I'd speak to him and say, "Hey Steve, look, this mirror ball motor's crap. Can you fix it? Can you move it to the left and it'll stop it rubbing?" "Oh, okay, no problem." And I'd go down on the factory floor and make the changes myself because it was easier than trying to speak Spanish to the Spaniards, which it was impossible. I couldn't speak Spanish. And so I learned in Pepe's Copperluth cooperative light how to build disco lights. And we sold disco lights into 40 countries around the world. So it gave me a massive friends that I'd built up, over the time at Copperluth. And I started to build my own lights, invent my own lights. And one of them was a moonflower. I can tell exactly how I did it. This is exactly how it happened. Pepe also made lampshades, like those flat sort of factory lampshades, real flat with a little curve on it and a bulb in the middle, and it hung from the roof. So I got one of those and went down to the mirror ball factory part and stuck a load of mirror facets onto the inside of this dish. Okay. He had a 575 lamp that he used to put in his follow spots. So I shoved one of them in the focal point, and then he had a follow spot lens, 9-inch lens, huge thing. And I got it all in focus, put a cardboard box over the top, switched it on, and these beams, what we call moon beams, thousands, there must have been hundreds of them because lots of little facets. It never got manufactured with that amount of facets, but we put bigger ones on in the end. But you should have seen this thing. These beams were everywhere. And somebody decided to put a smoke machine on it. And that was it. Life changed. Forget the mirror balls, the moonflowers. Wow, that was it. That was the future right there. A stepping stone. I look back now, and abstract would never have happened if it wasn't for Pepe and that twist of fate when he walked up to me in that DJ box in Micmac, Kaltenkirchen in Germany.
So how was abstract created then? If you went on these, you went to Germany, you worked in Spain. So how did you manage to, start a business from nothing?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. All good things come to an end, and Cooperative Light and myself had to at one point part company. I was building lots of lights. They were paying me, pretty much not commission, but kind of a commission type thing. And too many lights. We were making too many Steve Watts lights and not copper loof lights. Yeah. And they were paying me too well, really. And I think that eventually the other cooperative members were fed up with seeing this English guy, taking lots of money. So Pepe sort of said, "Look, Steve, this has got to come to an end now. We need to carry on doing what our Spanish manufacturing business does, but we can't afford your expense. I'll give you the money to get you home, back to England. And thanks for lasting a couple of years. It's been an experience, but it's got to end." And I agreed, to be fair. It wasn't, Madrid wasn't the greatest place for me to live. I mean, it was nice, but it was very early days. It was very much a religious country. Things were done differently. It's a beautiful place, by the way, but it was just different. It wasn't like as cosmopolitan as it is today, that's for sure. So I went back to the UK, worked for my brother, Martin. God rest his soul. We lost Martin some years back. And I worked for him on a molding machine, molding Nike training shoe shelves. And we made hundreds and hundreds of thousands of these shelves for Nike. And that taught me about manufacturing. It was a hard working environment. And Martin was a grafter, and he taught me business. He taught me what you can get away with, what to do if you get into a bit of a mess, how far you can push things, all of those things. Martin taught me all of that. He is the only person that taught me that, to be fair, and the rest of the lessons I learned myself. But to answer the question there, how did abstract start? Well, Martin and I started to decide we were going to start making disco lights, basically. And him and I made the first scatter spot together. Not the twister, but the scatter spot. And after a bit of time, we started arguing as to how we were going to do it. He'd got his plans and I'd got my plans. But all the same, we'd made between us, the scatter spot then turned itself into the Wild Star. And we'd made a Wild Star, basically prototype. And he made 50 of them under my agreement. And then he went and sold them without me kind of really knowing that much about it. And that wound me up, to be fair. But later on, he managed to carry on actually making lights. Martin did for a while. He made lights for Ian Brown over at WB Lighting, I think it was called. He then worked with Constella and Derek at Constella, helping them build disco lights. Later on down the line, of course, after abstract had been sort of born, I did actually become a director of Constella and sorted out the mess that Martin had kind of left it in. But we don't need to get into that. Martin was a fabulous bloke, and he taught me a lot. So any pain was, it was well paid in the long run for sure. And Abstract was started when Paul Stewart, who was the guy that took me to Denmark, he said, look, if you're going to start making disco lights, you can do it in my garage if you want. And Marcia, who was my wife at the time, she turned around, and her mum's boyfriend, Alan Fleetwood, and there's a name right there, Alan Fleetwood, said, look, if you want to start building disco lights, then I'll tell you what, I'll lend you some money. And he did. He did, God rest his soul. He lent me money. He was a very good silent partner. And I purchased a dancing flower on the way back from Cornwall with Marcia. Last 20 quid we got. She was fuming. You know, why have you spent 20 quid on a dancing flower? And insult to injury. When I got it home, I stripped it, and I wanted the PCB out of it. And as you know, your dad and yourself worked in a PCB manufacturing plant, and you got the first order without you even knowing that who I was or Abstract or anything else about that. And you guys made the first twister PCBs without you ever knowing what was going on. And they are dancing flowers. The Twister Electronics was a dancing flower. I modified it clearly and obviously, but the reality is it was a dancing flower. And we started in Paul Stewart's garage, making the first Twister and Scatterspot and Wildstar. And Mick Hanniford from Light Factor Sales came along one day. We met somewhere, I don't know if it was in the garage or what, and he said, Steve, I want to distribute your product exclusively. And I said, well, I can't be totally exclusively because we've got a few customers. No, okay, well, I get that. But in the main, I want to be exclusive. He said, after a year, maybe 2 years, you'll be fed up with having a distributor and want to do it yourself. But right now, I'm up for it. And here's your first order: 50 of them, 50 of them, and 50 of them. And that's how Abstract was started. Mick Hanniford took us, from zero to hero in the in the first year. And we did, I think we did something like 400,000 turnover in year one. Thanks to Mick Hanniford. You're a superstar. Thank you so much. And the first twisters were white. Well, they were coloured. They were coloured mirror dishes, and there were coloured beams for the first month or so, and then they automatically went white because the felt tip pens that we coloured the mirror dishes with all wore off.
Right, very professional.
No.
So obviously it all started in the garage, and then you moved on, you created Abstract, you got a property. So it obviously then developed into £1 million company, didn't it? Because I was there, I saw the success of it. So how did it then move on to that level from being so small?
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, the business became very, very, very successful very quickly. I mean, year one, I think we did sort of like I said, 400,000 with the help of Mick Hanniford and Light Factor Sales. Year two, we started to develop our own network, and we went up to sort of like 800,000, I think it was. Year three, 1.3 million. I mean, it was incredibly successful, and Twisters were selling at the rate of 100 a week, week in, week out. We'd introduce things like Hypermoon, which were monstrously massive sellers, fantastic product. So, this sort of like young man and his dream to create an enterprise was really happening. But it was never done, and for the money. It was never about the money. It was more about the joy that we got from seeing people using our lights. I think, Plaza was one of the biggest launch pads, without doubt, for us, because we could showcase the product. We'd go along to Adrian Brooks, light structures, and go, "Hey up, Adrian, can you build me a space station, mate?" Yeah, no problem, Steve, no problem. And I bet you want it for no and all, don't you? Well, as close to as you can, buddy, if that's all right. Oh, Plaza's here again. you'd hear him moaning. He'd have to build a space station for like $3,000 or something, because that's what we got. But this was the madness of Plaza back in the day. It was a wonderful experience. Then we'd go in to see Rick Wilson from the Matrix. Hey, mate, can we borrow a smoke machine? Yeah, no problem. You can have a G300 or whatever smoke machine it was at the time. And this was the magic. This was the magic of Plaza back in the day. The sort of things that we did, you'd never get away with today. We've got dancing girls on the stages. We'd have the after show party with beer, and I won't tell you, and you don't want to know what went on behind them curtains. It was fantastic. And we'd got what was it, Space Station Abstract, and then we had Mission Impossible. Some of the themes that we did were just brilliant. Loved every moment of it. And I do remember actually that Tim from Sabre, who is our chief software engineer, and Chris, I remember the two of them saying, you know what, this year, Steve, we're going to do your light show for you. And about 4 a.m, the light show controller, not one of your Club 64s, Angie, it's okay. We had about 30 of them, all linked together with MIDI.
Any faulty ones out there, I didn't do it.
And the master control MIDI control unit lost its mind at about 3 a.m. and wiped all the MIDI commands. Nightmare. And I came in first thing in the morning, and at 9 o'clock, first show 11, and I've got to rewrite the entire light show from scratch. I mean, the stress that we used to put ourselves under, but that was what it was about. It was about the passion. Even Peter Hansen, he'd have the passion to make sure his light show was better than mine, and I'd try and make mine better than his. And that's what it was about. And then Kevin Hopcroft to try and beat us all by doing some form of doing narrative. If we'd be doing the light shows, and he'd be like, okay, now check out my lights got 65 billion gobos, and doing a different way. Fantastic stuff though. Back in the day, those light shows were just terrific. So Plaza was a massive launch pad. I met American DJs Chuck Davis, went over to see him, and then he bought 500 of this and 500 of that. And as you know, and lorry loads of stuff disappeared off over the ocean waves. Yeah. And that was fantastic. Casper Herler, I met him, German distributor, sold multiple of hundreds of products. The Danish distributor trying to sell against Martin, Carsten Jørgensen, well done Carsten, did a great job as well. Con Biriani, as I call him, of course it's Con Viviano, isn't it? I just call him Mr. Biriani just for a bit of fun. But Con, fantastic bloke, sold so much stuff for us. And we were massive. Abstract became probably one of the top 10 lighting manufacturers, of discotheque lighting manufacturers in the world at the time. I mean, we were monsters. It was incredible history, incredible story.
And you also had at one point had a big dealing with the USA, didn't you? You did loads shipping them out there. And what was it like, making it in USA? Because that's not an easy thing to do.
And no, it wasn't. I mean, America was not an easy thing to achieve by any stretch of the imagination. But Chuck Davis was the main driving force, American DJ. Toby, who's now, I think, the CEO, he was just a young lad, working for Chuck. Chuck was the man, and his brother Scott. I mean, American DJ was just insane. Eric Loader. They're all part of the young crew that have now, of course, become very, very powerful people themselves. Just to name a few great people that, for example, have worked for me, like John Saunders, that went on to create analysts for Robey, for Joseph. No, without John Saunders, there would not have been any analysts, in my opinion. And then you've got the likes of Daz Worley, who works obviously for Abstract, and then went on and has done great things for, I think it's Osram, is it? These are great people. Mark, who worked for me, he's now Concept LED. He did incredibly well. So it reminds me, of course, of the Copperloaf story where Sattel was the main manufacturer, and then you got all these little offshoots. Well, it's the same thing, but America became huge for us. I mean, Germany did, but America was massive. And Chuck Davis would take mini StarTechs, as he called them, which were our future scanners with his own brand on it, and he'd be taking 500 at a time, lorry load, a full lorry load of them, driving off down the driveway. Made you very proud. And if I remember, your mum worked for me for many, many years, retired at Abstract, didn't she, Ange? And she headed up the American manufacturing division. We had our own factory just for manufacturing for America only. And this went on for years and years and years. And it was America that gave me incredible trappings in life. It certainly was the icing on top of the cake, and it was a wonderful thing. But all good things come to an end, and the Chinese manufacturers started to copy the Mini StarTech and give Chuck new options. But my software engineer at the time, Dave Summerland, his name was, he was developing stepper motor technology, and because all our drive gear was driving servo motors in the scanners to start with, all servo controlled. And Dave Summerland at the time was making my brand new Mini StarTech and Future Scan with stepper motors. And sadly, he decided that he was going to go off in his own direction. And, he I think it's fair to say he dumped me, really. He dumped me at a very, very bad time, and started Mad Lighting. And Dave Summerland was Mad Lighting. And he went on to create the Mad Scan, and it was a fabulous product, and it kicked us in the butt pretty hard, because we was servo technology and he was stepper motor technology. Casper Haler moved over from Abstract to Mad, and became a Mad distributor instead of an Abstract one. Don't think Chuck ever did that, to be not that I'm ever aware of it, but I got my own back in the end because I bought Mad. Years down the line, I bought Mad, and Mad became a Steve Watts property, which gave me incredible and great pride. That's probably the easiest thing I can say about it, really. But that's life, though, isn't it? And life is a very, very funny thing, really. And then I met the wonderful Sabre Technology, who helped me massively to redevelop all my products, and they're still with us today. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Chris. Without you guys, would never have happened, mate. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And they helped rebuild Abstract. And, that's America was just one thing. But eventually, Chuck Davis and the Steve Watts thing came to an end because of, I think, Chinese imports and pricing. And then I met Marcel. And Marcel was a massive salesman for Martin Professional in the US. He drove Martin US, I think, incredibly hard and developed a lot of sales. And both Marcel and I went into business, and we started AVR Inc. So that was the American arm of Abstract AVR Inc. And we sold a lot of stuff together, Marcel and I. We really, really did. But I think that, I actually feel that I let him down a bit in the true reality, because he wanted to build that brand and build it hard. That is, go hard or go home. That was Marcel's theory. And I couldn't keep up. I just did not have the monetary asset to be able to fuel the sheer volume that you needed for America. And I think that I starved him of success, really, because he would have made AVR massive. I know that, but I just couldn't keep up, and that's the true reality. So sorry, Ross, if I caused you any pain along the way, but we're still great friends, and thank you for everything you did for me in the United States. But they do say that the US is a graveyard for British companies, and I can understand clearly why that is the case.
Yeah, but you must be pretty proud, though, that you're a British manufacturer, and also it's quite a family affair, isn't it, as well?
And I am so proud that we're still a British manufacturer. after 30 years, 3 decades, I mean, it's a massive, massive length of time, but to still be a British manufacturer for me is the proudest thing ever. We've never stopped manufacturing in the UK, never. You know, right from even all the way through COVID, we're still manufactured and kept on going, found customers, kept the business alive. It's incredible. I mean, it's a mothership, and Abstract is without a doubt the ultimate mothership. And yes, it is a family affair. There's no doubt about that. You know, my brother Dave Watts, thanks Dave, amazing job. He's helped through 30 years bring the business to being a great manufacturing company. Rob Watts, when he was with us, a fabulous bloke, did a great job of building up a network. Owe him an awful lot for that. Martin, you know, I know he was never really truly part of Abstract, but he was always a bit of a mentor, you know, in the background, shoving me along, telling me how to do it, whether he could do it himself or not. But he gave me inspiration of how to do it, and you know, and then you know yourself, Andrew, and your mum, and how she did fabulous work and retired at Abstract. You know, she must have been with us 25 years. It's very much a family affair, really. And everybody that works for Abstract is part of the Abstract family. And I look after those people. Gary Fleetwood, who was, you know, top designer, he was Alan Fleetwood's son. And Alan Fleetwood was a 50% shareholder in Abstract at the very beginning. And then Gary's son, Tom Fleetwood, he is our designer today, you know, with Glenn Bancroft. Glenn is the chief designer and chief of R&D. But, you know, Tom is in there with him. And so this just shows you the family affair, but the talented people. It's not just family, they're all talented people in their own right. And I think that's what makes me, you know, super proud of Abstract, to be honest.
So even though you had great success, you must have had darker days.
Yeah, every business has bad days, doesn't it? But I think losing the Alliance and Leicester contract was a dark day, because we had to let go 40 people that have been with me for years, and you know we had to make them redundant, and that was a pretty shocking time. Also, I think when Rob Watts left Abstract and went to work for himself because him and I fell out, I think that was a stupid move. Not good for Abstract. Very, very bad for Abstract at the time. We survived it again, being the survivors that we are. But yeah, it was a stupid move. Letting go of, you know, a man of such talent when it comes to growing a business, and not really valuing him for what he was worth at the time, and just seeing it as money. I think that was a big mistake on my behalf. Obviously, when Alan Fleetwood cashed in and sort of like left, that were difficult times, because again, it was a lot of financial strain on the business. That was a pretty tough one. But I think, you know, in the main, they've all been financial dark times, if you want to call them that, ones where it's been really difficult to keep your business alive and puts a lot of stress on you. I think that is probably the most difficult time for me being in business. But, you know, there's been a lot of successes as well, and the successes will way outweigh the difficult times. But, you know, you've got to look in opportunity. Opportunity is there if you want it. And, you know, I remember, I think you remember too, Angela, we was, I think, on our way somewhere, and, you know, there's a lorry in front of us, and it got all the Alliance and Leicester jobs on it that had been cancelled, and they bought them, they paid for them, and they were taking them down the skip because Santander had done a hostile takeover bid on Alliance and Leicester, and rebranded, and they didn't want the systems that we were putting in for them. And that was a £4.5 million contract, and it was lost overnight. We was only like £1 million through it. And that would have been the making of us, to be honest. You know, it was brilliant days, that was. 76 people worked for Abstract at the time. There were lights coming out of every orifice of every every corner of the building. Gordon Addison will tell you that. You know, he was often down at the factory looking at things that were going on. It was incredible. It was an incredible success story. But it got cancelled, you know, overnight, and they went and skipped all of that product. And I can tell you now, you know, off record, that I rang my brother up and says, "Hey, old Dave, can you go down Whetstone Tip and see if you can buy that lot back?" So for every dark moment, there's always a silver lining.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen you working firsthand and everything, and I've seen you go through the difficult times. But what makes you still have the drive and the passion to put everyone else first? Well, and including me, to be honest. But
No, you're always first. But no, look, in business, you've got to find the direction. It's your duty, isn't it? As the custodian of that company, it's your duty to make sure that business survives. And one thing Abstract is a survivor. I call it the mothership. It is the mothership. You know, she is a battleship when required to be one. You know, she can float around very, very gently on calm seas, but when the seas get rough, then she gets rougher. It's a lot smaller than it was before COVID, but I think everybody's going to be in the same boat. But we are strong, and you know, we're ready to fight another day, and that business is just going to keep going. And that's. And I think my drive is because it's never been about the money. It's always been about making Abstract successful, and you know, it's not my first rodeo, as Simon Deary often said to me from Lead Poison. You know, this ain't my first rodeo, Steve. And I like to use that phrase from him. But yeah, it's been tough and challenging at times, but that makes us the man, doesn't it?
So, well, Abstract's, I think, going to be 31 this year. Is that correct?
It is, yeah.
So I suppose what most people want to know is, what is the future? Where is the future? What are you going to be doing?
Well, I think, you know, the future is in the past. You know, we've been incredibly successful. We've now been through COVID, and every business has had a reset. You know, our turnovers are down 70-80% in entertainment because entertainment has no customers. And until the customers come back, the future is pretty dented. Our industry's been decimated, and very little in the way of help, governmental help, all the rest of it. So the future has got to be in the people, because the people are what is going to turn this whole thing around. You know, business is people. The customers are people, and you know, we've got to listen to them. So we've started Project 21. And Project 21 is about taking the retro product of yesterday, redesigning it and bringing it into a product for the future. But it's designed by the people.
Yeah, because I suppose with COVID, you know, the industry has been in total hash. So I suppose when it all gets back to normal, it's just going to be a massive boost, isn't it? Because people are just want to be going, they're going to be wanting to go out and do things. So is that where you think you're going to be thriving again?
There's no better way really than ask your customer what they want. Surely that's got to be the answer, isn't it? And we can deliver on that promise, and that is exactly what we're going to do.
So have you got any snippets, a little bit of a sneaky thing for everyone to know what you're going to be doing?
Well, we have. You can see that in Project 21. So if like quite a few people have already joined Project 21, and they already have seen the very, very beginning of the new Abstract. And if you'd like to join, then please send me an email to steve@abstract.co.uk and just put, "Hi, Steve, I'm interested in joining Project 21." And I'll send you an email back saying exactly how you can join and become an exclusive member of Project 21 and be involved in helping to create tomorrow's product. And I'd love to have you on board. We've got some great people on board already, and of course we'd like more. It's always great to have many people on board with different ideas, different concepts, different thoughts, you know, at the end of the day. So yeah, that's the way. Steve at abstract.co.uk.
So just going back over old products, what was your favourite product?
I'd say the most, my most favourite products at the time was the Hypermoon and the Monster Moon, because they were such a product that really, I guess it drove us into two markets. The Monster Moon drove us into the small club market, and the Hypermoon drove us way into the sort of mobile discotheque marketplace. And both products were super successful. The Hypermoon sold more tenfold than the than the Monster Moon, clearly, because of the price, the lightweightness of it and everything else. The Galactic Moon was a fabulous product. Wildstar was loved the Wildstar, really did. The future scans and things like that, to me, were just scanners. I mean, they gave me a buzz, but they weren't the one, if you know what I mean. But the VRX, that definitely gave me a buzz when Gerard Cohen from Trackerman and Peter Johansson from Martin walked past the Plaza stand and both looked up and stopped dead in the tracks. Stopped. I mean, these guys never stopped. They're always marching. They stopped and pointed. And then that was a proud moment. That was a woohoo moment where Abstract had just hit the big time with innovation that made even the larger manufacturers think, wow, this was the first composite professional scanner on the marketplace that looked stunning, and it had a beautiful finish. The paintwork was insane. It was quick, it was nimble, it was bright. The rotating gobo version was just fantastic, and the light show that it created on the auto light show mode was, it was the best. It really was the best. Biggest seller, obviously, Twister. Hundreds of thousands, 100,000 Twisters were sold worldwide. They were incredible products, incredible. I know some of them were the lower cost versions, of course, but they sold so many. The Wildstar was a great success back in the day. It really was. A lot of DJs and small clubs loved it, because to them the scatters, not the Wildstar, was really like a 90-degree, nodding scanner, but with a moonbeam on it. So it just had that edge. It really did. So yeah, definitely. The Rave was another big one. I remember getting the Rave into Canada, and the Canadians loved the Rave. It was big in Canada. That product was fabulous product.
Okay. Well, anyway, thanks, Steve. I think we've got a bit of insight into Abstract and how it came about. If anybody wants to send you any questions and they want answering or anything, then we can do a part 2.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, of course. I mean, a part 2 would be great, wouldn't it? Really. I mean, I think surviving COVID part 2 what should be called. I think everybody just wants to survive. I think that's the main thing. And thank you so much to everybody that's bought an Abstract product over the years. Thank you so much. It's been an incredible life journey, and it still is. It still is an incredible journey. Thank you so much to every single distributor around the world that's played their part. Eddie Smile, I remember him having over 30 grand's worth of Abstract products behind a wooden door and a tiny little padlock, some backstreet yard at a railway station near London. One knock of a hammer, it would have just dropped off, and you would have opened the door to 30 odd grand's worth of gear. But yeah, God rest there, Eddie Smile. We lost many years ago, but a fantastic salesman, brilliant. He really was. Many people would have known him, and they would know exactly what I meant. He was a funny guy, but by goodness me, when he got mad, he got really mad. But if there's any questions you want to ask me, of course, then please do send me an email, steve@abstract.co.uk, and I'd love to answer them for you. Absolutely would do. And by the way, Ange, thanks for life. Yeah, thanks for everything.
Yes. Okay then. Bye. Can I have my lounge back now?
You can indeed. You can indeed. I'll let you have it back there. I don't know.